Welcome back to Midnight Affair Tales. Thank you for joining us. Aiden's scream tore through the night. Logan Pierce had spent years in war zones, hearing the cries of men in pain, the echoes of death and destruction. But nothing had ever frozen his blood like the sound of his 6-year-old son wailing in terror. The world moved in slow motion as he sprinted through the house, his heart pounding against his ribs like a war drum. The back patio door was wide open, cold air rushing in. His boots hit the tiled floor with heavy, determined steps as he ran toward the source of the sound. Then he saw it. Aiden's tiny body lay sprawled on the ground below the second-story balcony. His limbs were twisted unnaturally, his chest rising and falling in weak, shallow breaths. For a second Logan couldn't move. His body locked up, his military instincts warring with the sheer, gut-wrenching fear clawing at his throat. Then his training took over. He vaulted over the railing, dropping down beside his son in one swift motion. His hands trembled as he reached out, feeling for a pulse. Was there. Faint. Weak. But there. Aiden, he choked out, gently tapping his son's face. No response. Blood trickled from a deep gash on the boy's forehead, staining the grass beneath him. Footsteps pounded upstairs. The sound of a door slamming. Running. Someone was leaving. Logan's head snapped up, and that was when he saw the figure in the shadows, just beyond the patio, slipping through the darkness. He couldn't make out the face, but he didn't need to. The rage inside him was instant. He wanted to chase, to hunt, to kill. But Aiden's tiny body twitched beneath his hands. His son came first. Logan scooped him up, his heart hammering against his ribs as he sprinted to his truck. His vision blurred with fury, but his hands were steady as he placed Aiden in the passenger seat and peeled out of the driveway. His mind screamed at him. Who did this? And why? The answers would come later. But one thing was certain. Whoever hurt his son was about to learn what real fear felt like. The hospital waiting room was too quiet. The kind of quiet that pressed into Logan's ears like a scream. He sat stiffly in a plastic chair, fists clenched so tight his knuckles turned white. The smell of antiseptic and cold metal filled the air, but he barely noticed. His mind was trapped in one looping thought. Aiden should have been safe. He wasn't some absent father. He had protected people his entire life. In the military, in war zones, in high-risk situations. And yet, his own son had been attacked right under his nose. The door to the emergency room swung open. A nurse stepped out, her face tight with worry. Mr. Pierce? He was on his feet instantly. Is he okay? He's stable, she said quickly. But he's unconscious. We had to put him under observation for head trauma. His right leg is fractured and he has some internal bruising. The fall could have been fatal, but he's a fighter. A breath shuddered out of Logan's chest. Relief. Barely. Can I see him? Just for a moment. She led him inside, and the sight of Aiden hooked up to machines nearly broke him. His son looked so small in the hospital bed, his tiny hand wrapped in gauze, and 4 running into his arm. His head was wrapped in white bandages and his breathing was slow, steady. Logan pulled up a chair, leaning close. He hated hospitals. Hated the smell, the beeping monitors, the sterile walls. He had spent too much time in places like this, watching soldiers die under his hands. But this wasn't a battlefield. This was his son. He reached out, brushing Aiden's hair back gently. I'm here, buddy. His son stirred. Barely. Then, in a voice so faint it was almost a breath, he whispered, Mommy's friend pushed me. Logan's entire body went still. For a moment the world stopped. And then the rage came. Logan sat in his truck, gripping the steering wheel so tight he thought it might snap. His jaw clenched so hard his teeth ached. Mommy's friend pushed me. The words played over and over in his head. They weren't a mistake. Aiden didn't make things up. And if he was telling the truth, that meant Vanessa. His wife. His unfaithful wife. Logan had suspected for months. The late-night texts. The cold distance. The way she suddenly seemed absent even when she was home. But this wasn't just an affair. This was attempted murder. He took a slow breath, forcing himself to stay in control. Anger wouldn't help right now. What he needed was information. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through his old contacts. Special Forces had taught him many things, how to hunt, how to kill, how to make people disappear. But it had also given him connections. Connections that could dig up dirt on anyone. One name stood out. Reed Dawson. An old military buddy now working in private intelligence. Logan dialed. A gruff voice answered, "Pierce? Haven't heard from you in a while. I need a favor." Pause. Then, "What kind?" Logan exhaled slowly. "I need to know everything about a man named Travis Malone." Another pause. Then a low chuckle. "Malone? You got a problem with him?" "You could say that. He's bad news, Logan. Ex-con, violent temper. Been in and out of the system for years. Got a history with domestic abuse." Logan's grip tightened on the phone. "Anything else?" "Yeah," Reed said. "Word is he's been seeing a married woman. Name's Vanessa." Logan closed his eyes. It was worse than he thought. Travis wasn't just some guy. He was a predator. A dangerous man who had just hurt his son. And Logan Pierce was about to make sure that was the biggest mistake of his life. Logan didn't remember driving back to the hospital. His mind was a fog of rage and cold calculation. He had spent years learning how to fight, how to kill, how to survive. Now all of that training was boiling inside him, waiting for an outlet. And that outlet had a name. Travis Malone. He stormed down the hallway toward Aiden's room. His son lay still, his tiny chest rising and falling in slow, controlled breaths. Machines beeped softly beside him. The doctor had said the next 24 hours were critical. Logan sat by his side, his hand resting gently over Aiden's. "Daddy's here," he murmured. "I'm not going anywhere." Aiden's eyelids fluttered. His lips moved, barely forming words. Logan leaned in, his heartbeat hammering. "Did you get him?" Logan froze. Aiden's voice was weak, his little fingers twitching against Logan's palm. His son's first waking thought wasn't about himself. It was about justice. Logan swallowed, his throat tight. "Not yet, buddy." Aiden blinked, fighting to keep his eyes open. He licked his dry lips, his voice barely a whisper. "Don't let him get away." And then his tiny body shuddered, his breathing slowing. The heart monitor beeped erratically. Nurses rushed in. Logan was pushed back as they worked to stabilize him. Logan clenched his fists so hard his nails dug into his palms. His son had spoken his final words before slipping into a coma. And those words were a mission. Travis Malone wasn't just a target anymore. He was a dead man walking. The next morning, Logan stood in his garage, staring at the weapons rack on the wall. He had promised himself he was done with war. He had sworn to leave that life behind. But war had just come to his doorstep. His hands moved automatically, selecting weapons with the calm precision of a soldier. A combat knife. A Glock 19. A tactical vest. Travis didn't know it yet, but he had started a fight with the wrong man. Logan turned on his laptop. Within minutes, his old military buddy Reed had sent over the full report on Travis. Name, Travis Malone. Criminal record, assault, domestic abuse, drug trafficking. Current location, a low-end motel on the south side of the city. Known associates, street gang connections. Logan's jaw tightened. A coward. A weak man who preyed on those smaller than him. He grabbed his keys. It was time to send a message. As he walked out, his phone buzzed with a notification. A new milestone alert. 1,700 subscribers. For a brief second he smirked. He had started documenting his life, his military experience, his survival tips. And now he had an audience. People watching his journey. A thought struck him. Where are you guys watching from? He had always been curious. Who were the people behind the screen? The ones supporting him, reading his story, waiting for justice? Were they from New York? California? Texas? Or were they from a place just like his own city, where monsters like Travis Malone still roamed free? He tightened his grip on the steering wheel. Tonight the hunt began. And to his 1,700 warriors out there, one thing was clear. This was just the beginning. The motel was a filthy dump, the kind of place that didn't ask questions. Dim lights flickered outside, casting eerie shadows over the cracked pavement. Logan parked his truck a block away, stepping into the darkness like he belonged there. No hesitation. No fear. This was his world. His boots made no sound as he approached the back entrance. He had already scouted the exits. The building had a cheap security system, easy to bypass. Travis was inside. Logan moved like a ghost, blending into the shadows. He could hear voices, low murmurs, a TV playing in the background. Then he heard it. Vanessa's voice. His blood turned to ice. She was inside with him. Logan's jaw clenched. He hadn't expected her to still be with Travis. Maybe she was just as trapped as Aiden had been. Or maybe she had chosen her side. He needed to know. Stepping closer, he reached into his jacket, gripping his Glock. The weight was familiar, comforting. He took a deep breath, then moved forward. The hunt had begun. Logan flattened his back against the wall outside the motel room. His heartbeat was steady, his breathing controlled. Years of military experience had drilled one lesson into him. Patience is a weapon. Inside, Travis's voice was sharp and aggressive. Logan could hear him arguing with Vanessa. "You think he's not coming for me?" Travis spat. "That bastard knows by now. And if he steps anywhere near this motel, I'll put him down like a dog." Vanessa's voice was smaller, nervous. "Logan isn't like you. He's different." "Different?" Logan clenched his jaw. She had no idea. The only difference between him and Travis was that Logan knew when to pull the trigger. Through the cheap curtains he saw movement. Travis paced the room, a bottle of whiskey in one hand, a gun in the other. Vanessa sat stiffly on the motel bed, her arms crossed over her stomach like she was holding herself together. Logan counted 3 other men in the room. Travis had brought protection. Smart. But not smart enough. Logan took a step back, weighing his options. A direct attack was risky. Too many variables. Too many innocent people in the motel. He needed to make them afraid. Pulling a suppressor from his jacket, he screwed it onto his Glock with calm, practiced ease. Then he aimed at the thin motel window, and fired. The bullet shattered the glass, hitting just inches from Travis's head. Inside, chaos exploded. Travis hit the ground, scrambling for cover. His men grabbed their weapons. Vanessa screamed. Logan's voice was low and deadly as he muttered to himself, "Run, Travis. Let's see how far you get." Then he disappeared into the night. The motel was in a panic. Guests were shouting, sirens wailed in the distance, and Travis's men were scrambling to check the perimeter. But Logan was already gone. He watched from across the street, standing in the shadows, his eyes locked onto one person, Vanessa. She was pacing outside the motel, her arms wrapped around herself, looking more terrified than guilty. A sliver of doubt crawled into Logan's mind. How much did she really know? She had lied to him. She had betrayed their family. But had she known what kind of man Travis really was? Had she ever thought he would go as far as trying to kill her son? Logan wasn't a man who forgave easily. But he also wasn't a man who punished the wrong people. With a slow breath, he made his choice. Vanessa was about to get her one chance. He slipped into the alley behind the motel, moving through the darkness. A few minutes later, he stepped out of the shadows, right in front of her. She gasped, stumbling back. "Logan." He grabbed her by the arm, pulling her deeper into the alley. "Did you know?" His voice was ice. She shook her head violently. "I swear I didn't. I knew Travis had a temper, but I never thought. Logan, please, I never thought he'd hurt Aiden." Logan's grip tightened. "You expect me to believe that?" Tears streamed down her face. "I made a mistake. I was stupid. But I would never let anyone hurt our son." Logan's jaw clenched. He was a human lie detector, and right now he could tell she wasn't lying. But that didn't mean she was innocent. "I don't care about your regrets, Vanessa. I don't care what you meant to do. You brought this monster into our lives." She flinched. "Now, I need to clean up your mess." Her lips trembled. "What are you going to do?" Logan leaned in close, his voice dropping into something lethal. "I'm going to destroy him." Then just like that he was gone. By the time the police arrived at the motel, Travis and his men were already gone. Logan wasn't surprised. Men like Travis didn't wait around to get caught. He watched from a distance as officers taped off the area, asking motel guests for statements. But he already knew how this would play out. No one had seen him. No one would mention his name. And even if they did, the law wouldn't help him. Logan had already gone to the police once. After Aiden's fall, after he had heard his son whisper, "Mommy's friend pushed me," he had done the right thing. He had filed a report, demanded an investigation. But the system had failed him. No evidence. No witnesses. No case. The cops had looked at him with pity, patted his shoulder, and told him they would look into it. That had been 4 days ago. And nothing had happened. Logan clenched his fists, his stomach twisting with disgust. He had spent years fighting for this country, serving a system that now refused to protect his own son. Fine. He didn't need their help. He pulled out his phone and called Reed. "Tell me you've got something," Logan said as soon as his friend picked up. Reed chuckled. "You think I'd let you down? I've got Malone's entire playbook. His movements, his burner phone records, even his usual stash houses." Logan exhaled slowly. "Send me everything." "Already did." A notification popped up on Logan's phone, an encrypted file transfer. He opened it. Addresses. Timelines. Known associates. It was a gold mine. Logan turned, looking toward the flashing police lights one last time. Then he walked away. They had their chance to handle this legally. Now it was his turn. Logan didn't hesitate. He had spent days watching, planning, waiting for the right moment. Now the time for patience was over. Travis's men had made a mistake. They had a routine. A habit. And habits? They got men killed. The first target was a low-level thug named Eddie Gallo. A street-level enforcer for Travis, the kind of guy who thought he was tough because he carried a gun but had never been in a real fight. Logan had watched him come and go from a dingy bar on the east side every night. Always drunk, always alone. An easy target. Tonight was no different. Eddie staggered into the parking lot, fumbling for his keys, cursing when they slipped through his fingers. Logan moved like a shadow. Before Eddie could react, Logan grabbed him from behind, slamming him into the side of his own car. The man let out a strangled yelp, but Logan clamped a hand over his mouth. "Scream and you'll regret it." Eddie's breathing turned ragged. Who the hell? Logan didn't answer. He grabbed Eddie's wrist and twisted hard. A sickening crack filled the air as the man howled in pain. "Where is Travis?" Logan's voice was calm. Controlled. Deadly. Eddie panted, eyes wide with fear. I don't know, man. I swear." Logan sighed. Wrong answer. He grabbed Eddie by the collar and slammed him against the car again, knocking the breath out of him. "You're gonna tell me everything," Logan growled. "Because if you don't, I promise you, this is just the beginning." Eddie's face paled. He believed him. They always did. By morning, Eddie was gone. Not dead, just broken. Logan had left him bruised, battered, and terrified enough to make him disappear. But he got what he needed. Travis was still in town. And worse, he knew Logan was coming. Logan wasn't surprised. He had made sure Travis felt the pressure. The shattered motel window. The whispers in the streets. The missing men. Travis was a rat, but even rats knew when the walls were closing in. Logan parked his truck outside an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town, one of Travis's usual spots. He was expecting to find him alone. Instead, he found a trap. The second he stepped through the door, bullets ripped through the air. Logan dove behind a stack of crates, his heartbeat steady despite the chaos. He counted the shots, listening carefully. 3 shooters. At least. Automatic weapons. No silencers. They were sloppy. Panicked. That was good. Logan stayed low, moving fast. He grabbed a broken metal pipe from the ground and hurled it across the room. It clattered against the far wall, drawing their attention. "Over there." One of them shouted. "Amateurs." Logan moved like a ghost, slipping through the shadows. He reached the first man before he even realized what was happening. One swift strike. A knife between the ribs. The second shooter barely had time to react before Logan took him down with a brutal elbow to the throat. Only one left. The final man tried to run. Logan grabbed him by the back of the shirt and slammed him onto the concrete. The man coughed, gasping for air. "Where's Travis?" Logan's voice was quiet. "Dangerous. I don't know." Logan's boot pressed down on his chest. "Art. Try again." The man wheezed. He moved locations. Said he's got one last place to lay low. Logan narrowed his eyes. One last place. He leaned down, his voice barely above a whisper. "Where?" Travis wasn't running. That's what made Logan pause. If Travis had one last hiding place, it meant he was preparing for something. A last stand. A final battle. That was fine. Logan was ready. He sat in his truck, going over the intel he had gathered. Travis was holed up in an old auto shop, deep in the industrial district. The place was a fortress, reinforced doors, multiple exits, and enough firepower to hold off an army. But Logan wasn't an army. He was one man. And that made him more dangerous. He grabbed his gear, his mind sharp, his body steady. There was no hesitation. No doubt. This was happening. Before stepping out of the truck, he pulled out his phone. There was one last thing he had to do. He opened the camera, hit record, and looked straight into the lens. To all of you watching this, thank you. 1,700 of you standing behind me. And this is just the beginning. We're not done yet. Not even close. He smirked. Now tell me, where are you watching from? Let's see who's got my back. He ended the recording, uploaded it, then slipped his phone away. He wouldn't check the responses. Not yet. Because now it was time to end this. Vanessa sat alone in her dark apartment, her hands shaking around a half-empty glass of wine. The television hummed in the background, but she wasn't paying attention. Her mind was elsewhere, spinning, unraveling. She had seen Logan that night. She had seen the look in his eyes. And it terrified her. Logan had never been a man to show fear. Even in his worst moments, he had always been controlled, calculated. But tonight he had looked like a man ready to burn the entire world down. And she had caused it. A sob built in her throat, but she swallowed it down. Crying wouldn't fix this. Nothing would. Her phone buzzed on the table. Travis. She stared at the screen. She knew she shouldn't answer. Knew that every second spent in his orbit was another step deeper into hell. But her hands moved anyway, her thumbs swiping across the screen before she could stop herself. Where the hell are you? She hissed. Travis's voice was sharp. That psycho husband of yours is hunting me. You didn't tell me he was a damn assassin, Vanessa? Her stomach twisted. You tried to kill his son, Travis. What the hell did you expect? Silence. Then a low chuckle. I should have finished the job. Something inside Vanessa snapped. You're a monster, she whispered, disgust curling in her throat. Maybe. But you chose me. You let me into that house, into your life. You're just as guilty as I am. Her hands shook. I didn't know what you were. You knew enough. And the worst part? He was right. Vanessa had made her bed. And now she was going to pay for it. Travis sat on a creaky metal chair inside his final hideout, a rundown auto shop on the far side of town. The air smelled of motor oil and rust, the dim fluorescent lights flickering above him. His hands curled into fists as he listened to his men argue around him. Logan's already taken out half our guys, one of them muttered. He's a damn ghost. Another man nodded. If he finds this place, we're done for. Travis slammed his fist on the table, silencing them. Shut the hell up. The room fell quiet. Travis leaned forward, his voice low and sharp. Logan isn't invincible. He's just a man. Men? They bleed. They break. We just have to hit him where it hurts. One of his guys frowned. You mean Vanessa? Travis sneered. Vanessa is a coward. She's not the weak spot we need. He pulled out his phone and scrolled through his messages, stopping on one name. Aiden. A cruel smile curled his lips. If we can't kill the father, we finish the job on the son. The room went deathly silent. Even his own men looked uneasy. Boss, that's risky. Travis's eyes darkened. Logan took my men. My money. My reputation. I'm not running anymore. It's time we make him suffer. His fingers tapped out a message. Seconds later, a reply came in. Travis grinned. Everything was falling into place. Logan Pierce thought he was the hunter. But now he was about to become the prey. Logan knew something was wrong the second he pulled into the hospital parking lot. Too quiet. His instincts screamed at him. He stepped out of his truck, scanning his surroundings. Nothing looked out of place. The streetlights flickered, cars sat parked in neat rows, and the emergency room entrance glowed in the distance. But something felt off. He took a slow step forward. Then, movement. A man stepped out from behind a parked van. Then another. And another. 5 men. Armed. Logan exhaled through his nose. So this was how they wanted to play it. The first guy made the mistake of speaking. Logan Pierce. Logan didn't answer. Instead he moved. Fast. His fist connected with the man's throat, cutting off any chance of a response. The guy choked, stumbling back, and Logan spun, his boots slamming into the knee of the second man. A gunshot rang out. Logan twisted, narrowly dodging the bullet. Another attacker lunged. Logan ducked, grabbing the man's wrist and twisting hard. A sickening crack followed. The guy screamed, dropping his weapon. 3 down. 2 left. One of them rushed forward, swinging a crowbar. Logan sidestepped, catching the man's arm and using his own momentum to flip him onto the concrete. The last man hesitated. Logan's bloodied knuckles clenched. Run. The man didn't need to be told twice. Logan turned, breathing hard. Aiden. He sprinted into the hospital, pushing past nurses and doctors until he reached his son's room. His chest tightened. The bed was empty. The monitors were beeping, the sheets were rumpled, but Aiden was gone. Logan's stomach dropped. Then a nurse rushed in, breathless. Mr. Pierce. Your son, he's safe. The police moved him after getting a tip about a possible threat. Logan's hands curled into fists. Where is he? A secure location. His pulse pounded. A tip. Someone had set this up. Someone wanted him distracted. Travis. That son of a bitch. Logan closed his eyes, forcing himself to breathe. They had tried to take his son. They had tried to kill him. Enough was enough. This war wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about survival. And Travis Malone? He wasn't going to survive the night. Logan's body was running on pure adrenaline. His muscles ached from the fight outside the hospital, but the pain barely registered. They had come for Aiden. They had failed. But the fact that they even tried? That changed everything. Logan stormed out of the hospital, his blood still hot with fury. He had to move fast. If Travis was desperate enough to send men after Aiden, it meant one thing. This war was coming to an end. He climbed into his truck, gripping the steering wheel so tightly that his knuckles turned white. His mind was a storm of calculations. He needed leverage. Travis had struck first. Now it was Logan's turn. His phone buzzed. A message. Unknown number. You think you can take me out, soldier boy? I own this city. You're just another dead man walking. Logan's jaw clenched. His thumbs moved swiftly. Logan, then why are you running? Seconds passed. No response. Then another text. Unknown number. Meet me at the old dockyard. One-on-one. Let's settle this like men. Logan stared at the message, his gut twisting. It was a trap. Of course it was. Travis didn't fight fair. He never had. But Logan wasn't walking into this blind. He hit speed dial. Reed picked up instantly. You finally ready to listen to me? Logan exhaled. I need backup. A low chuckle. Now we're talking. Where and when? Logan read the message again, his heartbeat steady. Dockyard. Midnight. You got it. But Logan? This ends tonight. Logan's grip tightened on the wheel. Damn right it did. Aiden's eyelids fluttered open. The world around him was blurry at first, shapes and shadows moving in and out of focus. But then the light settled. The white ceiling. The soft beeping of the heart monitor. The warm blanket wrapped around his small body. He was safe. The last thing he remembered was pain. Falling. The cold air rushing past him. And then darkness. A soft voice pulled him from his thoughts. Aiden? He turned his head slowly. A nurse stood beside him, smiling gently. You're awake, she said, relief flooding her expression. That's good. You've been through a lot, buddy. Aiden blinked. Then the panic hit. Daddy? His voice was small, weak. The nurse touched his shoulder gently. Your dad's okay. He's been here the whole time watching over you. Aiden swallowed hard. Where is he? The nurse hesitated. He had to step out. But he'll be back soon. Aiden's chest felt tight. He didn't like this. He didn't like being alone. His father was the strongest person he knew. He made the bad things go away. And now Aiden was afraid. Can I call him? The nurse smiled. Of course. She handed him a phone, already dialing. The line rang once. Twice. Then Logan's voice came through, steady, strong. Aiden? Tears pricked the boy's eyes. Daddy? Logan exhaled sharply on the other end. I'm here, buddy. I'm coming back soon, okay? Aiden sniffled. Promise? Logan's voice was steel. I promise. Aiden clutched the phone, his little hands shaking. And even though his father wasn't in the room, he believed him. Midnight. The dockyard was silent, the air thick with the scent of salt and rust. Dim streetlights flickered along the empty lot, casting long shadows over the abandoned shipping containers. Logan stood in the dark, his gun loaded, his mind razor-sharp. This was it. Travis wanted a war? He was about to get one. A car engine rumbled in the distance. Headlights cut through the darkness. Logan didn't move. He stood still, waiting. The black SUV rolled to a stop. The driver's door opened. Travis stepped out. Even in the dim light, Logan could see the arrogance in the way he moved, the way he smirked like he still thought he had the upper hand. "Didn't think you'd actually show," Travis called out, spreading his arms like he owned the place. Logan didn't respond. He just stared. Silent. Unmoving. Travis chuckled. "What's the matter, soldier? Losing your nerve?" Logan finally spoke, his voice low and cold. "You sent men after my son." Travis shrugged. "Not my fault the kid got in the way. You should have stayed out of this, Logan. But now..." He pulled out a gun, aiming it casually at Logan's chest. "Now I get to clean up my mess." Logan smirked. "You think you're in control here?" Travis's expression flickered. "I have the gun." Logan tilted his head. "And I have you surrounded." Travis's eyes widened. From the shadows, Reed and his men emerged, silent, deadly. Guns raised. Travis's cocky smirk disappeared. "Looks like you finally ran out of places to hide," Logan said, stepping forward. His voice was eerily calm, steady. "Now, let's talk about your last mistake." Logan's grip tightened around his Glock as he stepped closer to Travis. The bastard was cornered. No more backup. No more places to run. Just him and Logan, the way it was always meant to end. "You really think you've won?" Travis sneered, his gun still raised, his finger twitching over the trigger. "You have no idea who you're messing with." Logan tilted his head slightly, his gaze ice cold. "I know exactly who you are, Travis." He took another step forward. "You're a coward." Travis's smirk faltered. "You hide behind your men. You hide behind Vanessa. Hell, you even tried to hide behind my kid." Logan's voice was quiet, lethal. "And now, you're standing here with a gun, hoping that will save you." Travis scoffed, trying to regain his confidence. "You think you're the good guy in this story?" Logan didn't blink. "No. But I'm the man who's going to make damn sure you never hurt anyone again." Travis's grip on the gun tightened. "You wouldn't kill me in cold blood." Logan smirked. "That's the difference between you and me." Then he moved. Faster than Travis could react, Logan knocked the gun aside and drove his fist into Travis's ribs. The ex-con stumbled back, coughing, but Logan didn't give him a second to breathe. A brutal right hook to the jaw sent Travis crashing into the side of the SUV. He barely had time to register the pain before Logan grabbed him by the collar and slammed him against the hood. "You're out of chances," Logan growled. Travis spit blood onto the pavement, glaring up at him. "So what? You gonna kill me?" Logan's eyes darkened. "Not yet." He nodded toward Reed. "Load him up." Reed's men grabbed Travis, shoving him into the back of a blacked-out van. Logan wiped the blood off his knuckles and exhaled. This wasn't over. Not yet. But soon. Very soon. The warehouse smelled of rust and gasoline. Dim lights flickered overhead, casting eerie shadows against the concrete walls. Travis was tied to a chair in the center of the room, his head slumped forward. Blood dripped from the corner of his mouth, staining his shirt. Logan stood across from him, arms crossed. "You made this personal, Travis?" A low chuckle escaped Travis's lips. "Yeah. And what are you gonna do about it, tough guy?" Logan's jaw clenched. "I could end this right now." He took a slow step forward, his boots echoing against the concrete. "But that'd be too easy." Travis looked up, confusion flashing in his bloodshot eyes. "What the hell does that mean?" Logan leaned in close. "It means you don't deserve a quick death." He turned toward Reed. "Call the cops." Reed raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" Logan nodded. "I want him to rot in a cell. I want him to wake up every day knowing he lost. No power. No gang. Nothing." Travis snapped. "No. You can't do this." He thrashed against the ropes, his face twisted with rage. "I own this damn city." Logan smirked. "Not anymore." Reed pulled out his phone, dialing. As the call connected, Logan pulled out his own phone. He hit record and stared into the camera. "To everyone watching, thank you. 1,700 of you stood with me through this. And guess what? This is just the beginning." He let the camera pan over to Travis, tied up and furious. "We don't let men like this win. We don't let them take what matters." And now, he's done. Logan turned back to the camera, his smirk widening. Now tell me, where are you watching from? Let's hear it. Who's got my back? He ended the recording and uploaded it. The response would come later. For now, he had a final battle to win. The police had Travis. The fight should have been over. But Logan knew better. Men like Travis didn't just disappear. They had connections. They knew how to twist the system in their favor. And Logan wasn't about to let that happen. He sat in his truck outside the warehouse, scrolling through his phone. Comments were already flooding in from his 700+ subscribers. Hell yeah, Logan. You did it. This was insane. Best story ever. Watching from Texas. You got people everywhere, man. New York here. Logan's our guy. Bro, we need more. What's next? Logan exhaled, his lips curling into a small smile. 2,000 subscribers. That was the next goal. And after everything? He wasn't stopping anytime soon. His phone buzzed. Reed. You're not gonna like this, Reed said. Logan's stomach twisted. What is it? Reed's voice was tense. Travis's people are moving. They're already working to get him out. Logan's grip tightened on the steering wheel. He had known this wasn't over. Where? Logan asked. Reed sighed. City Courthouse. They're trying to bribe his way out. We don't have much time. Logan nodded, his mind already shifting into battle mode. If they want a war, he murmured, starting the engine. Then we give them one. Logan drove fast, weaving through the empty streets of the city, his mind razor-sharp. The information from Reed was clear. Travis's people were already making moves to get him out. And Logan wasn't about to let that happen. He reached the courthouse just as the first hints of dawn started bleeding into the sky. The building stood tall and imposing, its cold marble facade a reminder of how often justice failed the people who needed it most. Logan had seen it happen before. Men like Travis didn't sit in jail for long. With enough money, enough power, and enough connections, they always found a way to slither out, untouched, unpunished. But not this time. Logan parked his truck a block away, blending into the shadows as he approached on foot. He pulled his hoodie over his head, adjusting the mask covering the lower half of his face. Reed's intel had given him everything he needed. Travis was being held in a temporary holding cell inside the courthouse, waiting for his legal team to finalize the arrangement that would set him free. They were bribing the system. Like they always did. Logan's jaw clenched as he slipped into the alley beside the courthouse, his heartbeat steady. He had no intention of stopping this with paperwork. This was about ensuring Travis never walked free again. And if the system wouldn't do its job, then Logan would handle it his way. Logan crouched behind a row of dumpsters, watching the side entrance of the courthouse. It wasn't heavily guarded, just two men standing by the door, both of them hired muscle. Logan exhaled slowly. He had two options. He could go in silent, knock them out, slip inside and take care of Travis before anyone knew what was happening. He could make a statement. Logan's fingers curled around the hilt of his combat knife. Silent would have been the smarter choice. But Logan was done being quiet. He stepped out of the shadows, walking straight toward the guards. His boots hit the pavement with slow, deliberate force. The first man noticed him immediately, his hand moving toward his weapon. Too slow. Logan closed the distance in 2 seconds, his fist connecting with the man's throat. The guard choked, stumbling back, but Logan didn't give him time to recover. He grabbed the guy by the collar and slammed him headfirst into the brick wall. One down. The second guard cursed, reaching for his gun, but Logan was faster. He twisted the man's wrist, disarming him in a single fluid motion before driving his knee into his stomach. The guard crumpled with a groan. 2 down. Logan didn't waste time. He slipped inside the courthouse, moving quickly through the hallways. Reed's information had been precise. Travis was being held in a secured room on the 2nd floor, guarded by his personal lawyer and 2 of his remaining men. Logan climbed the stairs 2 at a time, his mind sharp, his pulse steady. He wasn't stopping until this was finished. The door to the holding room was slightly ajar. Logan moved with silent precision, pressing his back against the wall as he listened. Inside, Travis's voice was dripping with arrogance. I want to be out of here in the next hour. His lawyer's voice was quieter, nervous. We're handling it. The judge is on our payroll, but there's a complication. Travis scoffed. What complication? The lawyer hesitated. Logan Pierce. He's not backing down. Silence. Then a low chuckle. Travis's voice was filled with amusement. That's cute. But let me tell you how this is gonna go. Logan might think he's a hero, but this isn't a war zone. This is my city. And when I walk out of here today, I'm going to make damn sure he and his son disappear for good. Logan saw red. He kicked the door open so hard it slammed against the wall. The lawyer yelped. Travis's men scrambled for their guns. But Logan was already moving. He lunged at the first guard, twisting his arm until the bones snapped. The man screamed, but Logan didn't stop. He threw a brutal punch, knocking him unconscious before turning to the second guy. The man had his gun raised but hesitated. That was all the time Logan needed. A swift kick to the knee, a strike to the temple. The guy collapsed in seconds. Now it was just Logan and Travis. Travis had backed up against the desk, his cocky smirk faltering. You really think killing me will fix this? Logan exhaled slowly, his fingers flexing. I'm not going to kill you, Travis. Travis frowned. Then what the hell are you gonna do? Logan reached into his jacket and pulled out his phone. He hit record. Tell them the truth. Travis's eyes widened. What? Logan stepped closer, his voice steady. Tell them everything. The bribes. The corruption. The murders. You're done hiding. Travis laughed, a hollow, desperate sound. You think I'm scared of some video? Logan's smirk was cold. No. But I think the people who protect you are. He turned the camera toward the lawyer. Because if this goes public, guess who's going down with you? The lawyer's face turned pale. You wouldn't, Travis growled. Logan cocked his head. Try me. Travis's smirk finally broke. His jaw clenched. His hands shook. He looked at his lawyer, who was already reaching for his own phone, ready to cut a deal. Travis swallowed hard. He had lost. And for the first time in his miserable life, he knew it. Logan stopped recording and pocketed his phone. You're going to prison, Travis? And this time? No one's coming to save you. Travis's face twisted with rage, but there was nothing he could do. Logan turned toward the door, exhaling. This war was finally over. Logan stood there, watching Travis's world collapse around him. The once arrogant criminal, the man who thought he controlled everything, now sat frozen, his face drained of all color. His lawyer was still on the phone, his voice a frantic whisper as he tried to salvage what was left of Travis's empire. But there was nothing left to save. Logan exhaled slowly, his hands flexing at his sides. This was justice. Not the kind written in law books. Not the kind whispered about in courtrooms where men like Travis paid their way to freedom. Real justice. The kind that made men like him answer for their sins. Travis finally snapped. You think you've won, soldier boy? He forced a laugh, but there was desperation behind it now. Even if I go down, someone will take my place. The system is rigged. People like me always come back. Logan's jaw clenched. He stepped forward, looming over the man who had nearly destroyed his family. You won't come back from this, Travis. You're done. Travis's hands curled into fists, his rage boiling over. You think you're better than me? You're a killer, Logan. You've always been a killer. The only difference between us is that I don't lie to myself about it. Logan's eyes darkened. You hurt my son. Travis smirked, his lip curling. Yeah. And I'd do it again. The room went silent. Then Logan moved. His fist slammed into Travis's jaw with the kind of force that came from months, years, of holding back. The man's head snapped back, his body crashing onto the desk before slumping to the floor. He didn't move. Logan shook out his knuckles, breathing hard. He crouched down beside Travis's unconscious form and whispered, You'll rot in a cell just like you deserve. Then he stood up and walked away. It was finally over. Logan didn't stick around for the aftermath. He slipped out of the courthouse, his body still humming with adrenaline, his mind sharper than ever. He knew what was coming, the police, the media, the fallout. But that wasn't his concern. His concern was getting back to Aiden. He moved quickly, weaving through the city streets, avoiding cameras and open spaces. He wasn't afraid of getting caught. No, he had too many ghosts in his past to fear that. But he also knew that sticking around would only invite more trouble. He had done what he came to do. Travis Malone was finished. His empire? Destroyed. His reputation? Gone. And now, Logan had to get back to the only thing that mattered. He reached his truck, sliding into the driver's seat. The leather was cold against his skin, but he barely noticed. His hands trembled slightly as he gripped the steering wheel. The rush of battle was wearing off. The weight of everything, the fights, the blood, the near-death experiences, it all came crashing down at once. For the first time in a long time, Logan let out a slow, shaky breath. He had survived. But survival was only the beginning. With a turn of the key, the engine roared to life and Logan drove toward home. Toward his son. Toward whatever came next. The house was quiet when Logan stepped inside. Too quiet. Aiden was at the hospital under police protection, so Logan knew he was safe. But Vanessa? She was waiting. He found her sitting on the living room couch, her hands clasped together, her eyes rimmed with exhaustion. She looked up the moment he entered. Logan. His name was a whisper, a plea, a confession, 1,000 unspoken regrets wrapped into 2 syllables. Logan didn't respond. He stood there, arms crossed, waiting. Vanessa swallowed hard. I heard about Travis. Logan's eyes flickered. Did you? She nodded, her breath shaky. They're saying he's going to prison. That his whole operation is crumbling. Logan didn't confirm or deny it. He just stared. Vanessa exhaled, rubbing her hands over her face. I didn't know Logan. I didn't know he would. Don't. His voice was sharp. Cole. Don't stand there and act like you didn't know he was dangerous. Her face crumpled. I was stupid. You were selfish, Logan corrected. You wanted excitement. You wanted something different. And you brought a monster into our home. Tears welled in her eyes. I never wanted Aiden to get hurt. But he did. Logan's voice was unrelenting. Because of you. A sob escaped her lips, but Logan didn't flinch. I don't hate you, Vanessa, he said finally. I don't even have the energy for that anymore. She sniffled, looking up at him with desperate eyes. Is there any way to fix this? Logan let out a bitter chuckle. Fix this. He took a slow step forward, his voice softer but no less deadly. Aiden almost died. Because of the choices you made. He shook his head. There's no fixing that, Vanessa. Her lip trembled. So, what happens now? Logan looked at her for a long moment. Then he said the words she had been dreading. You leave. Her breath caught in her throat. What? You leave, Logan repeated. You don't come near Aiden again. You don't call, you don't text, you don't try to fix what can't be fixed. Vanessa's face crumpled. Logan, please. It's not up for debate. Silence stretched between them. And then, finally, Vanessa understood. She had lost everything. Because of her own choices. Logan turned away, his chest tight. He didn't look back as she sobbed into her hands. This was how it had to be. Because some betrayals couldn't be forgiven. And Logan Pierce? He was done looking back. Logan sat alone in his truck, the weight of everything pressing down on him like a mountain. The street outside his house was empty, the distant hum of the city barely reaching his ears. He could still hear Vanessa's sobs ringing in his head, but he didn't let them affect him. He had made his choice. She had made hers. Now all that mattered was Aiden. His fingers flexed over the steering wheel. His knuckles were still bruised from the fight with Travis, his body aching from every hit, every bullet dodged, every moment spent fighting for survival. And yet the war wasn't over. Because even though Travis was going away, Logan knew men like him didn't stay locked up forever. There were still loose ends. There were still threats. And Logan had one last decision to make. Did he walk away from all of this? Or did he finish what he started? His phone vibrated. Reed. Logan exhaled and picked up. You're thinking about it, aren't you? Reed's voice was calm, knowing. Logan didn't answer right away. Travis's crew. They won't let this go, will they? Reed sighed. Not all of them. Some will scatter. But there's always a few who don't know when they've lost. Logan stared out the windshield. His mind was sharp, clear. I don't want to look over my shoulder for the rest of my life, he said finally. Reed was silent for a moment. Then you know what you have to do. Logan did. He wasn't done yet. The prison transport van rumbled down the highway, the guards inside silent, their hands resting lazily on their holsters. Travis Malone sat in the back, hands cuffed, a smirk playing on his lips. He wasn't worried. He had people on the outside. Money. Power. Logan Pierce thought this was the end? It was just a delay. He leaned his head back against the metal wall, his grin widening. In a few weeks, maybe less, his lawyers would make a deal and he'd be free. And when that happened, Logan was going to regret not killing him. The thought sent a dark thrill through him. He closed his eyes. And then, the van screeched to a halt. Travis's eyes snapped open as the guards cursed. One of them shouted into his radio. "Dispatch, we've got a situation." No response. Static. Travis's smirk faded. Something wasn't right. A second later, the back doors of the van exploded open. A figure emerged from the darkness. Calm, controlled, and terrifying. Logan Pierce. Travis's breath caught in his throat. What the? Logan climbed into the van, stepping over the unconscious bodies of the two guards. Travis's heart slammed against his ribs. "You're crazy." Logan's expression didn't change. "I know." Without another word, he grabbed Travis by the collar and dragged him out of the van. They were in the middle of nowhere, a deserted highway, miles of empty road stretching in both directions. The sky was dark, the stars above distant and cold. Logan threw Travis onto the ground. The ex-con coughed, struggling to his knees. "You're making a mistake, Pierce." Logan's gaze was ice. "You think I'm scared of you?" Travis spat. "You think this changes anything?" Logan pulled a gun from his jacket. Travis froze. For the first time, real fear crept into his eyes. Logan stepped forward, pressing the barrel to Travis's forehead. "This isn't about fear," Logan said quietly. "This is about making sure you never hurt anyone again." Travis's breathing turned shallow. He swallowed hard. "You don't have to do this," he whispered. Logan tilted his head. "You said you'd do it again," he murmured. "Hurt my son. Given the chance, you'd do it again." Travis's jaw clenched. Logan's finger tightened on the trigger. Silence. And then, a single gunshot echoed into the night. The sun was rising by the time Logan reached the hospital. His hands were steady. His heart was calm. He had made his choice. Travis Malone was gone. There would be no more loose ends, no more threats. No more fear. Logan had buried that chapter of his life once and for all. And now he had to figure out what came next. He stepped into Aiden's hospital room. The boy was awake, sitting up, his face lighting up the second he saw Logan. "Daddy." Logan exhaled slowly. For the first time in a long time, he felt like he could breathe. He walked over, sitting on the edge of the bed. Aiden reached for him and Logan pulled him close, holding him tight. "It's over," Logan whispered into his son's hair. Aiden didn't ask what he meant. He just nodded. Because he knew. Logan kissed his son's forehead, his grip firm but gentle. No more fighting. No more running. He was home. Finally. And for the first time in years. He was free. The hospital felt different now. Before, it had been a place of fear. A place where Logan sat in cold, plastic chairs, waiting for news that could shatter his world. But today? Today, Logan walked in with hope. Aiden was sitting up in bed, dressed in a fresh hoodie, his little face looking brighter than it had in weeks. His leg was still in a cast, but his eyes, their warmth, their innocence, were coming back. Logan exhaled, the weight on his chest finally starting to lift. The past few months had been hell. He had walked through fire, lost parts of himself along the way, but none of it mattered now. Because his son was safe. That was all that mattered. Aiden turned as Logan walked in, his small hands gripping the edges of his blanket. "Are we going home?" Logan nodded. "Yeah, buddy. We're going home." Aiden's smile grew, but then something flickered in his expression, hesitation. Is mommy coming too?" Logan's jaw tightened, but he didn't let it show on his face. He knelt down beside Aiden's bed, keeping his voice soft. "No, bud. It's just you and me now." Aiden looked down, his fingers twitching slightly. "Did she leave because of me?" Logan's heart clenched. "No," he said firmly. "She left because of her own choices. None of this is your fault." "Okay." Aiden swallowed, then nodded. Logan ruffled his son's hair, offering a small, tired smile. "You and me, kid. We're gonna be just fine." Aiden nodded again, this time with more confidence. "Yeah, we are." And just like that, Logan knew they had won. Not just the fight against Travis. Not just the battle against Vanessa's betrayal. They had won their future. And nothing was going to take that away from them. The house felt empty without Vanessa. Not in a bad way. No, Logan felt lighter. The shadows that had once lurked in every corner, the fights, the betrayal, the guilt, were gone now. It was just him and Aiden. And for the first time in what felt like forever, Logan could finally focus on being a father again. The days were slow but meaningful. He helped Aiden with his physical therapy, guiding him through the exercises that would strengthen his leg. He sat with him at the kitchen table, going over schoolwork even though the kid hated math. He tucked him into bed every night, staying up late to watch him breathe, just to make sure he was really there. It wasn't perfect. Aiden still had nightmares sometimes. Logan did too. Some nights, he woke up gasping for air, the echoes of the past clawing at his mind. The weight of everything he had done, everything he had survived, pressed against his chest. But then he'd hear Aiden's small, steady breathing in the next room. And the nightmares faded. One night, as Logan sat on the couch, flipping through an old photo album, Aiden hobbled in with his crutches. "Dad." Logan looked up. "Yeah, buddy?" Aiden hesitated, then asked, "Are you happy?" The question caught Logan off guard. Was he? He looked down at the photo in his hands, a picture of him holding Aiden as a baby, his younger self smiling, unaware of the storms that would come. "I think I'm getting there," Logan admitted. Aiden's lips quirked into a small smile. "Me too." And somehow that was enough. Vanessa sat alone in a cheap motel room, staring at the flickering neon light outside her window. She had nothing left. No home. No money. No family. She had made her bed and now she had to lie in it. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand but she ignored it. It was probably another call from the lawyers, reminding her that she had lost everything in the divorce. Or maybe it was Travis's old crew, wanting to know if she had anything left to offer them. She had nothing. She was nothing. Tears burned her eyes but she refused to cry. She had made a mistake. A monumental mistake. She had thought Travis was exciting, that he would make her feel alive again. Instead he had ruined her. And Logan? She had lost him for good. Her mind wandered to Aiden. Would he ever forgive her? Probably not. She had abandoned him. She had let a monster into their home and for what? A few months of feeling desired? She was a fool. And now she had to live with that. She reached for her phone, scrolling through old pictures of Aiden. Her little boy. The only good thing she had ever done in her life. A sob finally broke free, and for the first time since Logan had told her to leave, Vanessa truly understood what she had lost. And the worst part? She could never get it back. Logan sat on the front porch, watching the sun set behind the trees. The air was cool, crisp, one of those rare, quiet evenings where everything felt almost normal. Aiden was inside, playing on his tablet, humming to himself. It was peaceful. But Logan? He didn't know how to feel. For so long, his life had been about the fight. About survival. About making sure that the people who hurt him and his son never got the chance to do it again. And now there was no fight left. Travis was gone. Vanessa was gone. The threats that once loomed over him like shadows in the night had finally faded. He should have been relieved. Instead he felt lost. His phone buzzed in his pocket, shaking him from his thoughts. He pulled it out, glancing at the name on the screen. "Reed." Logan exhaled and answered. "What's up?" Reed's voice was casual but there was something in his tone, something expectant. "Just checking in. How's the kid?" Logan's eyes drifted toward the window where Aiden sat, completely focused on his game. "He's good. Getting stronger every day." "Good," Reed said. "That's good." Pause. Then, "You ever think about what's next?" Logan frowned. "What do you mean?" "I mean you're a guy with a particular set of skills. Skills that don't just go away." Logan's jaw tightened. "I told you I'm done." Reed chuckled. "Sure. That's what they all say." Logan didn't answer. Because deep down, he wasn't sure if he believed it either. It had been 3 days since Travis disappeared. 3 days since Logan had walked away from the war he started. He hadn't turned on the news. He hadn't checked his phone for updates. Because he didn't need to. He knew the city was talking. He knew the cops were scrambling, trying to make sense of the mess he had left behind. And sure enough, on the 3rd day they came knocking. Logan opened the door, his face unreadable as he stared at the 2 officers standing on his porch. "Logan Pierce?" one of them asked. Logan leaned against the doorframe. "Depends. What's this about?" The older cop, Detective Mark Hastings, flipped open his notepad. "You were a person of interest in the Travis Malone case. The case is now closed. But we still have some questions." Logan smirked. "Do you?" Hastings didn't blink. "Malone's crew is scattering. The city is a hell of a lot quieter now. Sounds like good news to me, Logan said. The younger officer shifted uncomfortably. We know Malone didn't just disappear. Someone helped that along. Logan folded his arms. And you think that was me? We don't have any proof of that, Hastings admitted. But I think we both know how this played out. Logan didn't respond. Hastings sighed, closing his notepad. I'm not here to make trouble for you, Pierce. I know what you did overseas. I know what kind of man you are. Logan's eyes darkened. Then you should know I don't play games. The two men stared at each other for a long moment. Then Hastings gave a slow nod. If I were you, I'd keep my head down. Logan didn't answer. Because deep down he knew something the cops didn't. He wasn't built to keep his head down. Logan sat in his truck, staring at the piece of paper in his hands. A job offer. Not from a normal company. Not from some corporate desk job. From Reed. The paper was simple, just an address, a time, and one sentence written in bold letters. Private security, high pay, no questions asked. Logan exhaled. This wasn't a surprise. Reed had always been good at reading people, and he knew Logan wasn't the type to sit still. But was this what he wanted? He had promised himself, no more war. No more blood. No more living in the shadows. But at the same time, what else was he supposed to do? He had spent his whole life fighting. And now, with the quiet settling in around him, he realized something terrifying. He didn't know how to live without the fight. His fingers tapped against the steering wheel. He had a choice to make. Go back to the only thing he had ever known? Or finally learn how to build something different? He glanced at the clock. The meeting was in an hour. He reached for the key in the ignition. And hesitated. Because for the first time in a long, long time, Logan Pierce didn't know what the hell to do. Vanessa stood outside Logan's house, staring at the front door. She shouldn't be here. She knew that. But she also knew she had nothing left to lose. The cold air bit at her skin as she shifted from foot to foot, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. She had played this moment over in her head 1,000 times, rehearsed what she was going to say. None of it mattered now. Because this wasn't about her. This was about Aiden. She took a shaky breath and knocked. Seconds passed. Then the door swung open. Logan stood there, his expression blank. His eyes flickered over her for a brief moment, unreadable, before he leaned against the doorframe. You shouldn't be here, he said, his voice low. Vanessa swallowed. I know. Silence stretched between them, thick and suffocating. Logan didn't move. He didn't invite her in. And for the first time Vanessa realized, this man was no longer her husband. He wasn't the man she had married, the man she had betrayed. That man was gone. Replaced by someone harder, colder. A man who had walked through fire and didn't have time for second chances. She struggled to find the words. I wanted to see Aiden. Logan's jaw tightened. No. Her heart squeezed. Please, Logan. I know I messed up. I know I don't deserve forgiveness. But he's my son too. Logan exhaled sharply, shaking his head. You don't get to play that card now, Vanessa. Not after everything. Tears burned her eyes. I love him. Logan's gaze locked onto hers, steady and unyielding. You had a chance to love him, he said quietly. And you chose someone else instead. Her breath hitched. This isn't about punishing you, Logan continued. It's about protecting him. And I won't risk Aiden getting hurt again just because you suddenly decided to feel guilty. A tear slipped down her cheek. So that's it, she whispered. You're cutting me out forever? Logan didn't blink. Yes. The finality in his voice broke her. She had come here hoping for some kind of redemption, some small piece of forgiveness to hold on to. But there was nothing left. Just the cold, hard truth. She had lost everything. And now she had to live with that. Without another word, Vanessa turned and walked away. And Logan didn't watch her go. Later that night, Logan sat on the couch, flipping through an old book when he heard small footsteps. Aiden stood in the hallway, rubbing his eyes sleepily. Dad. Logan set the book down. What's up, buddy? Aiden hesitated, then padded over, climbing onto the couch beside him. For a moment he just sat there, staring at his hands. Then in a small voice he asked, Did Mommy come today? Logan inhaled slowly. He had been hoping Aiden wouldn't wake up, that he wouldn't have to answer this question. But his son was too smart for that. Yeah, Logan admitted. She did. Aiden's fingers twitched. Did she say anything? Logan sighed, running a hand through his hair. She wanted to see you. Aiden bit his lip. Did you let her? Logan hesitated, then shook his head. Aiden was quiet for a long moment. Then, why? Logan leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. Because I don't trust her, buddy. And I promised I'd always protect you. Even if that means making hard choices. Aiden was silent. Then he whispered, Do you think she's sorry? Logan exhaled. Maybe, he admitted. But sometimes being sorry isn't enough. Aiden nodded, his little hands curling into the sleeves of his sweatshirt. Then, to Logan's surprise, his son looked up and said, I think I'm okay with that. Logan's throat tightened. Yeah. Aiden nodded again. She left us, Dad. But you didn't. Logan swallowed hard. In that moment he realized, this was all Aiden had ever needed. Not apologies. Not explanations. Just a father who would always be there. And Logan? He wasn't going anywhere. Logan stood in front of Vanessa's old house, the place they had once called home. It felt like another lifetime. A different version of him had lived here. A man who had believed in love and family and forever. That man was gone now. And he wasn't coming back. He pulled a folded envelope from his pocket and tucked it into the mailbox. Inside was a letter. Not an apology. Not a chance for reconciliation. Just the legal papers finalizing everything. No more ties. No more second chances. This was the end. As he turned to leave, Logan didn't feel sadness. He felt free. And for the first time in a long time, he was finally ready to move on. The morning light filtered through the kitchen window as Logan poured himself a cup of coffee. The rich aroma filled the air, mixing with the faint scent of bacon sizzling on the stove. Aiden sat at the table, swinging his feet beneath his chair, a stack of pancakes in front of him. Dad. Logan took a sip of his coffee, glancing at his son. Yeah, buddy? Aiden stabbed a piece of pancake with his fork. Do you think things will ever go back to normal? Logan set his mug down, considering the question. Their lives had been chaos for so long. The threats, the fights, the fear, it had all been their reality. And now that it was over, what came next? He leaned forward, resting his arms on the table. I don't think we can go back to how things were before. Aiden frowned. Why not? Logan exhaled, searching for the right words. Because we're different now. We've been through too much to pretend nothing happened. Aiden was quiet, chewing on his pancake thoughtfully. But that doesn't mean we can't make something better, Logan added. Aiden looked up. Better? Logan smiled slightly. Yeah. A new normal. A life where you don't have to be scared anymore. Where you get to just be a kid. Aiden considered that, then nodded. I like that. Logan reached across the table, ruffling his son's hair. Me too. For the first time in a long time, he wasn't just surviving. He was living. And he wasn't going to take that for granted. A month later, Logan stood in front of a modest house, staring at the for sale sign staked into the lawn. He had been thinking about this for weeks. A fresh start. A new city. A new home. Somewhere far from the ghosts of the past. Reed had offered him work, high-risk, high-reward security jobs that would keep him in the fight. And for a moment, Logan had been tempted. But then he looked at Aiden. And he knew that life was over. He turned to the realtor beside him. I'll take it. The woman beamed, flipping through her paperwork. Great choice. It's a quiet neighborhood, good schools, perfect for a family. Logan glanced down at Aiden, who was kicking a rock near the sidewalk. Yeah, Logan murmured. That's what I'm hoping for. As they walked toward the house, Aiden looked up. Do I get to pick my room? Logan chuckled. You get first pick. Aiden grinned. Even if I want the biggest one? Logan raised an eyebrow. Let's not push our luck. Aiden laughed, a real carefree laugh. And Logan? For the first time he felt at peace. The new house was quiet at night. Logan sat on the back porch, a cold beer in hand, staring up at the stars. For so long his life had been about the fight. The mission. The need to eliminate every threat before it could touch the people he loved. Now there were no more enemies. No more battles waiting for him in the shadows. Felt strange. Good. But strange. Aiden was already asleep, his soft breathing drifting through the open window. Logan smiled to himself, taking another sip of his beer. He had spent years protecting people. Defending his country. fighting battles no one would ever know about. But this was the greatest mission of all. Being Aiden's father. Being enough. He exhaled, leaning back against the chair. He didn't know what the future held. But for once he wasn't afraid of it. The waves rolled gently against the shore, the golden sunset bleeding across the horizon. The air smelled of salt and freedom, a rare, peaceful evening that Logan never thought he'd get to experience. Aiden sprinted ahead, his small feet kicking up the warm sand. His laughter rang out, light and carefree, as if the weight of the past had finally been lifted. Logan watched him, hands in his pockets, a quiet smile tugging at the corner of his lips. He had spent years in war zones. Years living in the shadows, hunting threats before they could reach the people he cared about. Now, there were no threats left. No more monsters lurking in the dark. No more battles waiting to be fought. The war was over. For the first time in his life, Logan wasn't preparing for the next mission. He wasn't looking over his shoulder, waiting for the next fight to come knocking. He was here. Present. Alive. A father. Aiden ran back toward him, breathless and grinning. Dad. Come on. Logan chuckled, shaking his head. I'm coming. He kicked off his shoes, feeling the cool sand between his toes as he stepped forward. His son needed him. Not as a soldier. Not as a warrior. Just as his dad. And Logan? He was finally ready for that. The past would always be a part of him. The scars would never fade completely. But they didn't define him anymore. Aiden did. And that was enough. As the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows over the beach, Logan lifted his head toward the sky. He had fought his war. Now he could finally rest. The end. But wait. One last thing. If you've made it this far, then you already know one thing for sure. This wasn't just a story. This was a fight. A journey. A war for justice. And just like Logan, we all fight battles. Some louder than others. But here's the real question. If you had to protect someone you love at all costs, would you be ready for that fight? Let me know in the comments. And hey, if you enjoyed this story, make sure to like if Logan's journey kept you hooked. Subscribe if you want more stories that hit hard and never let go. Share this with someone who loves a story about revenge, redemption, and raw emotion. This is just the beginning. Are you ready for the next chapter? Stay tuned.